And then also, not next weekend, but the following weekend on the Saturday, we'll also have our highest yoga tantra series, I believe, on Vajrayogini. So if you have the initiation, you are very free to register for that. So as we go along with the sadhana, also I wanted to mention there were 2 or 3 sections in the sadhana where, for whatever reason, the translator left out a line or 2 that Geshe thinks is really important. So I will stop us there so that people can write in or make a note of the things that Geshe feels are very important. And without much further ado, I'll invite Geshe down. We'll get started in 2 or 3 minutes. Grab a cup of tea or coffee, make yourselves comfortable. So hello and welcome everybody. Can you hear me clearly? Great. Again, so can you hear Geshe-la? Great. So let us begin. So Geshe-la was greeting all of the Dharma friends with Tashi-Dele. So first of all, Tashi-Dele, welcome to all of the Dharma friends. Geshe-la hopes that all of you are well and all of you are happy. So then today we are coming to the end of 1 year and we are coming to the beginning of a new year. So one of the reasons we are doing this retreat, of course, is when we think of, in particular, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but of course, all other qualified and realized lamas, indeed, all of those people who work to bring a benefit to sentient beings, we can engage in a practice like this so that any obstacles to their lives are dispelled, and so that any obstacles to their wishes and aims being fulfilled are completely dispelled. So and also, when we engage in the practice ourselves, this will be very helpful for ourselves in the new year in 2025 to clear away any obstacles to life and health, and also to clear away any obstacles to the fulfillment of our wishes, especially those wishes regarding the Dharma. And so when we talk about this precious human rebirth and we talk about seizing the essence of this precious human rebirth, there are 3 points that are really important for that. So the first is that we have longevity, that we have a long life. That helps us seize the essence. And so then in terms of ensuring long life or longevity, out of all of the various deities of longevity, White Tara, wish-fulfilling wheel, can be seen as like the queen of the long life deities. And so then the other thing that we need in order to be able to seize the essence is the practical enjoyments, having enough to eat, having enough to drink, and so forth. And the White Tara practice also assists us with this. And for this reason, she's also known as a deity of wealth. And also, we, in order to be able to take the essence of this human life, we need to understand the law of cause and effect. We need to understand, to have the wisdom to differentiate between what we should reject and what we should cultivate. And in order to do this, this is not possible without wisdom. So wisdom is absolutely essential. So normally the holy beings say that White Tara is a deity related to the cultivation of these 3: longevity, wealth, and wisdom. But also, of course, her practice will help us to cultivate many other positive qualities as well that might not be as well known. Oh, yeah, right. Listen.
Yeah. Oh, that Tombo Sosa Masaya put under the Yapon Roashaba, Gisidroma, Kabok Paji, Japonas, Joey Mikala.
Oh, Joey and Pekabla, Injimijin Yargo. So, one piece of advice from some of the holy beings, and when we say holy beings, we don't just mean ordinary teachers, right? We mean those possessing clairvoyance, those possessing realization, was that it is very important to have an image of White Tara in one's home. And if one is of limited means, then a picture of White Tara will suffice, but it is said to be very beneficial.
Oh, that then it is so that Yajinda was up in Jog Tony Tap,
and so then if you first start with like a picture, a simple image of White Tara, and then you come into a better financial situation, it's very good to invest, for example, in a tanka of White Tara in your home.
Oh, that daily
and then slowly, if one's financial situation improves, then as one has time, one can procure a statue of White Tara.
Oh, that the Gaza Mardas, what up against also the Nicheva in a two side of the division of the Kangalo Kotoji, the Gaza, or that Miashiva, but that's a total.
And so these are holy beings of a high attainment who advise these practices as a means for us to be able to accumulate merit and also to purify negativities or obscurations.
Oh, that did that in a Jagala Tashi with Tombasuka,
and so when we talk about also those lamas in the present day, for example, those who are living at the great seats in India, there are many of those great lamas who take White Tara as their yidam, as their chosen deity.
What that the Rigi Tangatang to do it up again, their teacher, or Tanganzo that target DDG to so much.
And so, understanding all of these benefits, as was explained, then we should feel that we are extremely fortunate to be able to engage in the sadhana practice of this deity. Together. And so generally also all forms of Tara, remember, they are said to be the wind elements of the 3 times Buddhas, past, present, and future. And so because they are embodiments of the wind element, then they are very quickly able to bestow enlightened activity. So all forms of Tara are also considered deities of enlightened activity.
Oh, that is a drama pomokoro, the motion you say she began a kilet or then Senji Yuzo, so Maji Bada, Nika Shawa, Tatu Shawa, Yapokanga, and
so also remember that Tara, before her enlightenment, when she was the princess wisdom moon, Yeshidawa, she made the promise that she would come in female form lifetime after lifetime until every last sentient being had achieved Buddhahood to help fulfill all of their wishes related to their ordinary and ultimate aims.
Oh, that $10 in the Chimboyare, so I take a more much. So do you normal easily?
Niece, ni
on your meal, ni shares in Madonna, so do you are.
Kan det säga? Ni sums. Kan det säga? Karimendrawa.
Naroso in a toyaga domachi.
Ale, Logyugi Jesundroma.
Yeah.
Right. So Geshe also said that when we speak about deities such as Tara, also when we speak about deities like Manjushri, like Avalokiteshvara, we can think of them as sort of in 2 ways. One is that historical figure, like in the case of Tara, wisdom moon, the woman who became enlightened. And the other is the Tara or the Chenrezi or the Manjushri that we ourselves will actualize. So we can think about these beings in 2 ways. Yes. Yeah, so that's actually quite a profound topic that maybe we can get into later, but just briefly.
Oh, that in this one, that so dashing going to go eyes and so
so then also as we go through the sadhana, you'll see that there is a self-generation as part of this practice. And then to do this before, we need the preliminaries of refuge and bodhichitta. So then for those of you who have a highest yoga tantra empowerment or who have a 2-day full empowerment of Kriya Tantra, you can generate as white Tara. But if you don't have this, what you have to do is just visualize white Tara at the crown of the head and do all of the visualizations in the ritual just on the basis of that crown generation rather than generating yourself. So Geshe said, yeah, it can be on the crown, but you can also visualize her in front of you if you like, whichever works better for you in that case. And so actually in the beginning of the practice, refuge is considered extremely important. So it's very important to visualize the objects of refuge before we recite that prayer. So then what we want to do is dissolve the ordinary place, our ordinary like house or flat where we live, into emptiness, and we want to bring forth a very beautiful, clean place that is in the nature of a Buddha field or of a pure land. And we think that this kind of beautiful environment of the Pure Land and the Celestial Palace, these are the results of the extensive merit accumulated by Venerable Tara and also an expression of her realizations of wisdom and compassion. So Geshe said what he's going to do is he'll explain a little bit about the purpose of the visualization and then he'll guide you in the visualization. So yeah. So in front of you, you're visualizing this beautiful Buddha field, which has beautiful meadows, trees, and so forth. And also in this beautiful Buddha field, in this Pure Land, there is a vast lake. And then in the center of this lake, there is a beautiful wish-fulfilling tree that's right in the middle of the lake. And so kind of in the center of this beautifully ornamented wish-fulfilling tree, there is a huge, Geshe said not small, a huge 4-petaled lotus. And so actually, and so then this 4-petaled lotus, you'll also see this mentioned in the sadhana. Lama So then, of course, if you have a 4-petaled lotus, in the middle of those 4 petals, you have the center of the lotus. And in the center of the lotus, if you're visualizing briefly, you can visualize your own kind root guru, the Lama who has moved your mind the most in the center of that lotus. And if you want to expand that visualization, you can also visualize all the other teachers with whom you have a connection and also the lineage gurus. This one, and then on the right petal of those 4 petals, the right petal is Buddha Shakyamuni as the main figure. And if you want to visualize more expansively, you can imagine him surrounded by the Buddhas of the 3 times past, present, and future. But this is embodied in Buddha Shakyamuni. Bodhisana?
Bodhi Peja.
Pesha, ale puti. And then Bodhisana. Ale puti. And then on the back petal of this four-petaled lotus, representing the Dharma jewel, are a kind of beautifully piled and ornamented texts, kind of like these long texts like you see behind me. That's on the back petal. Why do we say that the texts represent the Dharma jewel? It's because through practicing and through realizing the instructions of the texts, we realize the actual Dharma jewel within our own mind. We actualize it. And so then on the left petal, representing the Sangha jewel, we can think of the 8 bodhisattvas, Manjushri, Samantabhadra, Avalokiteshvara, Kshittigarbha, and so forth. And we can also think of the great Panditas, such as Nagarjuna and the other 17 Panditas of the Nalanda tradition. And we can also visualize the great scholars and yogis of the Tibetan traditions. And actually, you can visualize any of those realized lamas of the 4 great traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, and you can visualize them together. So this is on the left petal. So in this way, you see that actually we have covered the gurus as well as the 3 jewels of Buddha, Shakyamuni, Dharma, the texts, and Sangha, the bodhisattvas and panditas. So of course, there's one petal left, which is the petal at the front. And we visualize the deity of our main practice today, which will be white Tara, wish-fulfilling wheel. But we understand that although it is white Tara, visualized there only, she is the embodiment of all of the yidams or meditational deities. So then as we move forward with the practice, let us just begin with visualizing those objects of refuge. So first, place your mind in a peaceful, even state. And think that our environment has been completely purified. There is not even a remnant of samsaric ordinary environments. We have established a pure land. And so in the center of this pure land, there is a beautiful, clear lake, in the middle of which is a wish-fulfilling tree, upon which sits an extremely large 4-petaled lotus. And as we explained, in the center of that lotus are the gurus. To the right, the Buddha and the Shakyamuni and the other Buddhas. In the back, the Dharma jewel. On the left, the Sangha jewel. And the Yidam, white Tara, on the front petal. And as we gaze upon these objects of refuge, we imagine that sitting on the ground with us on either side are our mother and our father, and behind them, the unimaginably vast assembly of all 6 types of sentient beings within samsara, but possessing human form. And so as we gaze upon these objects of refuge, then think the 3 factors of the uncommon Mahayana refuge are in place: fear, faith, and compassion. And imagine that, pleased with our virtuous motivations, all of the figures in these refuge fields have the aspect of being pleased with us, are smiling at us. And then imagine that from all of these objects of refuge, beautiful lights and nectars manifest from their hearts. And these light rays and nectars enter ourselves and all sentient beings through the crown of our heads. So we'll begin the recitation. So Geshe said that as we go, pay attention to each of the words. So Dave, I don't know how people want to do this. Maybe people can message maybe people can message Dave with their preference. Dave can put the text on the screen for people to follow, but since we sent out the text to everybody, we can just keep the screen normal and people can look at the text on their computer. So maybe just message Dave if you have a preference of how to do that. And as I said, we'll do these mostly in English, but in the cases where the verse is repeated, I'll do the first recitation in Tibetan and the second 2 recitations in English. Tadan joa namge tadan nyambe semshen tamshe duni ne zunde jizi jangshu nimbola cheche badu taden lama tamba namla chabzu chiyo zobe sangye namba chabzu chiyo dambe che namla chabzu chiyo Babe gendu namla jabzu jiyo. Ma droma yijin kolo lazo godan jeba namla jabzu.
Yeah, so I'm opening it.
Sorry?
Pardon me. Sorry. I need to mute myself.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I think I gave Dave a little bit of a problem just now because I said, do people want it on the screen or do they want to read it? And so now probably half the people are saying they want it on the screen and half the people are saying they want to read it. So I probably should not have said that. So my apologies about that, Dave. We'll go now to the English recitation. Listen. I and all living beings as extensive as space, from today on until the essence of enlightenment is achieved, take refuge in the glorious holy gurus. Take refuge in the fully accomplished Buddhas. Take refuge in the holy Dharma. Take refuge in the Supreme Assembly. I take refuge in the Venerable Lady White Tara, the wish-fulfilling wheel, and the complete entourage of deities. I and all living beings as extensive as space, from today on until the essence of enlightenment is achieved, take refuge in the glorious holy gurus. Take refuge in the fully accomplished Buddhas. Take refuge in the holy Dharma. Take refuge in the Supreme Assembly. I take refuge in the Venerable Lady White Tara, the wish-fulfilling wheel, and the complete entourage of deities.
다 세제들에 생기 요소에 벌써 조가가 롤을 연기요 엔트리 디체다 다 지즈 조가가 다 컴포터 봐서
So the next one is Bodhichitta, a very specific form of Bodhichitta where one thinks that I will accomplish the purpose, the welfare of all sentient beings. And in order to actualize this, I am going to engage in the practice of White Tara, wish-fulfilling wheel. Lama dong konjo rinpoche namba sumla shaze shin kyasu chiyo chenangi dagi ji jinji ladu so semshen tamshi ki tundu zope sangi ki kopan toba sha di che du jetsu ma choka yishin kolo konde la juba ji. In order to attain the fully accomplished state of a Buddha for the sake of all living beings, I will enter into the sadhana of White Tara, the wish-fulfilling wheel. In order to attain the fully accomplished state of a Buddha for the sake of all living beings, I will enter into the sadhana of White Tara, the wish-fulfilling wheel.
그래서 다 데레 다 노지 다 가와이나 깨지 중시에 해야지 용기하래 아니 뜻이 투투근 거는 소설하셔야지.
So then Geshe said, when we do the practice of any type of sadhana, there will be the instantaneous self-generation where we generate as White Tara instantaneously. Now, for whatever reason, the translator did not put in this really important line of generating as White Tara. So just under this verse that ends the sadhana of White Tara, wish-fulfilling wheel, you should write, instantaneously I arise as Venerable White Tara.
다때 기빠 가르래 깨지 도생년이 로조 다시 게야 되지 가르래 기빠 가르래 잘라바이나스.
So we may ask, well, why right at the beginning of the practice do we need to do this instantaneous self-generation? Why do we need to arise as the deity right away?
당어로서 딱 근데 된데셔반 무지 단단 간조 라마여도 수리셔서 뭐뭐 지마 된데셔 그래. 스키도 막 고토지바.
It relates actually to what we just did. It is preparing for our guests, preparing for the lamas, yidams, buddhas, and bodhisattvas who we just invited.
대지마 된데셔ner다 대질다 다가지도 와자는 간서 근데 건설다 그게 제바 피부야.
So of course your guests would think that you were a poor host if you invited them and you didn't provide them with any objects of enjoyment and so forth, right? So we want to prepare things for the guests to enjoy once we've invited them. But of course, when we make the offerings to the holy beings, we can't just make the offerings kind of without doing something first. So we need to consecrate or bless the offerings as a preliminary. Yeah. Yeah. So then when we do this, we need to think about the four components of the offering. So we think about the substance of the offering itself. We think about the mantra of the offering. We think about the concentration when we do the offering, and we think about the mudra, the hand gesture that we perform related to the offering. But of course, also, if we make the offering to the holy beings without first blessing it, without first consecrating it, there may be some merit, but because it is just ordinary food, it hasn't been consecrated, it will be limited. But also, if we bless these offerings in our ordinary form, just in our ordinary body and identity, right, we don't necessarily have that much spiritual power. So also we won't be able to consecrate the offerings properly in our ordinary form.
제발 샬라 자발라 노지인 라멜이인 다 노치가 돈에 다 샬라 자는 뜻이 같이 그라레스.
And so with practices of Anuttara Yoga or highest Yoga Tantra, the blessings of these offerings is usually done in relation to the inner offering.
그래서 다 다다 때간들 다 텐디 메아이사 고샤지사 보쇼가 돈에 다 거러셔 샬라 자 그라레스.
Yeah. But as this is a practice of Kriya or action tantra, we don't do the inner offering. Instead, we imagine visualizing the offering vessels and blessing the offering that way. And these have to be blessed with the water from the vase. But if we just put some water in the vase and kind of scatter it around, that's not going to have much power either, right? We also need to bless the water in the vase. And this is another reason we need to do the self-generation, because if we try to bless the vase and the vase water in our ordinary form, we don't necessarily have the spiritual power to do that. So we have to generate as the deity first before engaging in that activity. Yeah. So now, Geshe said, finally, we got to the reason at the end of that spiel. This is the reason why we need I generate as the deity white Tara. And just for those of you who are wondering, this is in the Tibetan sadhana. I'm not sure why it wasn't added to the English. Yeah. And so Geshe said also, as we engage in the practice of the sadhanas, if we understand the reasoning behind each of the steps, right, this will give us confidence going forward. So when somebody says to you, why do we do the instantaneous self-generation? Right away, you should be able to say, this is the purpose, the reasoning behind the instantaneous self-generation. Yeah. So how do we do that then instantaneously? We try to make it instantaneous, very brief, but we imagine that all of these visualized objects of refuge dissolve into us. After they have dissolved into us, their holy body, holy speech, and holy mind become mixed inseparably with our own body, speech, and mind. This gives rise to joy, which then gives rise to great bliss. And then from this mind of great bliss, we can comprehend the emptiness of all phenomena. And then from that space, we arise as the deity. So we can also combine this with an awareness of Guru Yoga, right? Because a lot of those figures of the refuge field that we dissolved into us are the gurus. So we can think that from the gurus being dissolved into us, we are able through their blessing to bring forth an unmistaken comprehension of emptiness. So you can think about this as well. And then from that mind apprehending emptiness arises ourselves in the form of the deity. So this is one of the contemplations you can do with the instantaneous self-generation. So it's that mind realizing emptiness, its apprehension aspect, which arises in the form of the deity, in this case, White Tara.
다 디니를 셔도라 고라 요아르 되네 단달라서는 저거래 된다 쿠와니와 대파 강가파 좀아서 사도 강가 이와 강가 좀아서 요 사바지 소리야.
Akare tomba nangla droya.
Yeah.
And so, of course, behind this is also the awareness of our environment, right? The ordinary room or flat or house where we're sitting. This has all been dissolved into that sphere of emptiness. And then we arise the environment newly, right, as this pure land. So this is the way to think. So just meditate in this way on the instantaneous self-generation. Based on the power of the minds of Refuge and Bodhichitta that we have generated, the lamas and all of the other objects of refuge melt into light and nectar, and these come to our crown and descend into our body. We become inseparable. The Lama and enlightened beings' holy body, speech, and mind mixed together with our ordinary body, speech, and mind, and like milk and water stirred together, they become inseparable of one essence. All the negativities and obscurations are purified, the four joys are experienced, and an extraordinary bliss is established. And from that bliss arising, then this wisdom, also that bliss combined with that blessing, this wisdom arises. And through this wisdom, any phenomena, any object that we gaze at, we can perfectly comprehend its lack of inherent existence, its emptiness. And think that that mind of bliss, meditating upon the wisdom of emptiness, has as its aspect this form of White Tara, arises as the deity White Tara. Om Vajra Amrit. Allez. Think, I arise in the form of Venerable White Tara, wish-fulfilling wheel. Sangwa? Yeah. So then we are going to do the blessing of the vase and the offering. So we do the cleansing, the purifying, the generating, and the blessing.
어다세 순이되는 대시작이 단담만도리 있어.
And so those 4 are going to be explained in more detail tomorrow. But for now, we'll continue with the sadhana.
Yeah.
Om Vajra Amrita Kundali Hana Hana Hum Be Om Swabhava Shuddha Sarva Dharma Swabhava Shuddho Ham. So dissolve into emptiness. Out of emptiness, from 8 Om syllables appear spacious, extensive jeweled vessels, inside of which the syllables Om transform into different offering substances, which are clear, unobstructed, and extensive as space. Oma Agama Ahum. Oma Padam Ahum. Sorry, we're trying to synchronize. Yuri. So if you're wondering what Geshe-Lee was doing, he was reciting this first mantra, Om Benza Amrita Kundali Hana Hana Hum Pe, many, many times as the means of blessing the vase and the vase water. So when you recite this mantra, you have to imagine that the ordinary vase the ordinary water in the vase is completely transformed into amrit, into nectar.
Oh yeah, that is that chebashala there. So that inimeza jitu doma kodo chiba. So ya sunji to mobochi denrishika rawas.
And so next is the blessing of the offerings, and as we said, this is the preparing of the offerings before we present them to our guests, Venerable Tara, and all of the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, and the other holy beings. So you can think about it as like when you invite your guests, this is the time just before they arrive. This is the time when you are kind of preparing and bringing out the food to serve them. Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. So let's try that again. Out of emptiness, from 8 Om syllables appear spacious, extensive, jeweled vessels, inside of which the syllables Om transform into different offering substances, which are clear, unobstructed, and extensive as space. Oma Agam Ahum, Om Pajam Ahum, Om Pushpe Ahum, Om Dupe Ahum, Om Aroge Ahum, Om Gende Ahum, Om Yuide Ahum, Om Shabda Ahum.
So
Geshe-Lee said that when you do the blessing, you just have this short mantra, but when you actually make the offerings, you'll see that it's longer with praticha and so forth.
Oh yeah,
so rangni kechi ki jetsu masewe tukane, right? Ngadilo sosolo rwa. Yeah. So next is the we're going to generate and then invite all of the holy beings. So we're towards the bottom of page 4. I instantly become the Venerable Tara. The syllable Tam at my heart emanates rays of light, inviting from her Potala abode the Lady Tara, the wish-fulfilling wheel, surrounded by the assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to the space above. The light dissolves back into my heart. And so next one is prostration. Gods and asuras with their crowns bow down to your lotus feet. I prostrate to Mother Tara, the one who rescues from all needs.
단디니 제와 비야들에 스마트.
And so then the next offerings is the actual presenting of the offerings that have been consecrated or blessed.
제와 비야들 메디 노지 메야 하고 가레스 전니 예셰가 로모도 지바스.
So when we make the offerings, it's good to keep in mind the sort of structure of these offerings. So we can think of them this way: the 2 preliminary waters, the 5 actual offerings, music, and so forth. I'll say that again. The 2 preliminary waters, the 5 actual offerings, music, and so forth.
다 동번이 된년론다고 진이 되고 좀마서야 다 드리 년론다고 예셰가 세리 다 개발 조어라고 나더래.
So we say the 2 preliminary waters because these are the preliminary waters which are like preparing the person to receive the offering. Then the next 5 are the actual offering themselves, and then we have the extras such as music and so forth. So Om Guru Arya Tara Saparivara Agam Pajam Pube Dube Aloke Gende Nyude Shabda Praticham.
대다 필요하다 때문에 다 그러 언제 걸어서 다 이해를 가와다 대와
So then we meditate that having presented these offerings to the holy beings, we give rise to joy and bliss within their holy minds. So now the verse for receiving the Bodhisattva vows. Yeah. I take refuge in the 3 jewels. I regret all my unwholesome deeds. I rejoice in the merit of all beings. I will hold Bodhichitta until enlightenment. I take refuge until complete enlightenment in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. In order to fulfill the purpose of myself and others, I generate the mind of enlightenment. Having generated the mind of enlightenment, I invite all beings as my guests. I will remain in this excellent conduct of the Bodhisattvas. Thereby may I achieve the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all living beings. Yeah. So Geshe said, actually, we recite this 3 times. So we'll do the second part of the verse 2 more times. And he said quickly, I take refuge until complete enlightenment in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. In order to fulfill the purpose of myself and others, I generate the mind of enlightenment. Having generated the mind of enlightenment, I invite all living beings as my guests. I will remain in this excellent conduct of the Bodhisattvas. Thereby may I achieve the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all living beings. I take refuge until complete enlightenment in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. In order to fulfill the purpose of myself and others, I generate the mind of enlightenment. Having generated the mind of enlightenment, I invite all living beings as my guests. I will remain in this excellent conduct of the Bodhisattvas. Thereby may I achieve the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all living beings. And so then the next part of the sadhana is generating the 4 immeasurables. May all living beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all living beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all living beings be endowed with the happiness that is free from suffering. May all living beings remain in a state of equanimity, free of attachment for those they hold close, and aversion for those they keep distant. So think, from cultivating these 4 immeasurables, I've been able to dispel all unwholesome thoughts from my mind. They have been purified in this space of equanimity, and then due to that equanimity, I am able to bring forth perfect love and perfect compassion. And then think, my mind has been purified through this contemplation.
Oh yeah, dandel di disi adam washi. Om soba washanda sawadama, right? Om soba washada hang sawadama soba washada hang. Sa minazon trizako shajak yares.
Kantis yabu komaso Om Sobawa Shuddha Sarva Dharma Sobawa Shuddha
Chasun
Ham.
doko shaka. Om soba washada hang.
Okay, so the next mantra, Geshe is drawing your attention to the first two and the last syllable. Sorry, the first three and the last syllable. Om Sobawa Shuddha Ham.
Oh, sawadama soba washada hang.
And then Sarva Dharma Sobawa Shuddha Ham.
Oh, tan dig to garak tono to garasana kozag dame to chichi dame ni tumani mandawa ni de sono to yares.
Kangsagi Dame Tambo, Chugi Dame Nipa. So the first part, Om Sobawa Shuddha, this is where we contemplate the selflessness of persons. And then the second part is where we contemplate the selflessness of phenomena.
Om sena soso linga yesala tene tabi nate kosono to gares.
And then Om, actually, we think about the self, the I, that is designated on the basis of our body, speech, and mind.
Sobawa sena rungja.
Sabhawa means nature.
Shida sena taba.
Dagba?
Taba.
Daba sena.
Takata.
Daga daksena, like sopane daba. Yeah. And Shuddha means pure of inherent existence.
This one. Oh, that tandri roji tabi gatani nate sigyares.
So that I, which is pure, which is free of inherent existence.
This one. Oh, that sawadama seri chi.
Sarva Sena Tamshe, Dharma Sena Chit. So Sarva Dharma means all phenomena. So all phenomena, like the aggregates and so forth. And all of them are pure of being truly existence.
This one.
So when we recite this mantra, Om Sobawa Shuddha Sarva Dharma Sobawa Shuddho Ham, ideally we're contemplating these two types of selflessness. And then there is a cleansing, purifying, generating, and blessing based on this, but we can explain more about that tomorrow.
This one.
Los. So out of emptiness from the syllable Pam comes a white lotus, and from a moon disk, on top of which is my own consciousness in the form of a white syllable Tam, emanating rays of light. And again, translator missed a very important line here, emanating rays of light, accomplishing the purposes of beings. Accomplishing the purposes of beings. The light collects back and I become the venerable wish-fulfilling wheel with a white body, one face, and two arms. My right hand is in the gesture of supreme giving. The left hand is at my heart and holds between the thumb and ring finger the stem of an upala flower that blossoms at the level of my ear. It has three blossoms, the center one in full bloom, the right one having already blossomed and gone to fruit, and the left not yet opened. These three symbolize the Buddhas of the three times. I am adorned with jeweled ornaments and clad in a variety of silken garments. My upright body is supported by a moon disk, and I am seated in the Vajra position. At my crown is a white Om, at my throat a red A, and at my heart a blue Hum. At my heart on a moon disk is a white syllable Tam, which emanates rays of light, inviting from Potala Buddha field in the south, the venerable wish-fulfilling wheel surrounded by an assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Seta sorry, ti seta ya ro.
Yeah.
Ne za hum bam ho ya.
Yeah.
Ti cheshi ga mbe mutune tro.
Oh, ta mutune.
Za hum bam ho. They become non-dual. Again, rays of light emanate from the syllables at my heart, inviting the initiating deities.
Ta tini mi za la tane so so. Tu ba joner so so la she ya. Ane ke su tu shinje la ba. Yishi ba she tun ta de. Ane So
then what happens here is we purify our own body, speech, and mind. We then invite the wisdom deities, and then having invited the wisdom deities, they become inseparable with us as the self-generation. Yep.
Umbing ole,
Mhm.
이게 빠pom치 소노도,
Mhm.
포테칼에 저완도네라 메도피아마.
Yeah. Loso. So then what happens is we meditate on these two types of selflessness or emptiness of persons and phenomena. The mind that is meditating upon emptiness then arises as the syllable pam. Then that syllable pam melts, transforms into light, into a lotus.
그래서 다 디인데 이게 아치시 사베르와스 대용스 저발에 아니
Loso.
어 알리 다이치 코시사스
And then from an ah syllable in the center of the lotus, there appears a moon disk. And then on the basis of that, from the letter tam you get it. Then from a white letter tam, representing one's mind, sitting upon that moon disk, one arises in the form of white tara. We can think of tam as being like the seed of the deity, just like an apple seed is the seed of an apple tree. So then from that, then lights radiate and they fulfill the purposes of all sentient beings. And although this was left out of the sadhana, this is really important. So the lights fulfill the purpose of all sentient beings. Based upon fulfilling the purpose of all sentient beings, one accumulates a vast collection of merit and wisdom. And then this also invites all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions in the form of Venerable Tara. So our self-generation of the deity is known as the commitment beings. All of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that we're inviting and dissolving into us, these are known as the wisdom beings. And then to sort of stabilize this visualization and meditation, we have those 3 letters as points of focus. At the crown, a white at the throat, a red a, and at the heart, a blue hum. And then from that, then Geshe said we're already arisen in the form of a deity, but to stabilize and bless that visualization, we visualize inviting the holy beings to bestow on us empowerment. So we just missed one line, so I'll recite that and then we'll do the initiation. Jahum Bam Ho. They become non-dual. Again, rays of light emanate from the syllable at my heart, inviting the initiating deities. Please bestow on me the initiation. Om Sarva Tathagata Abhishekata Samaya Shriye Ahum. My body is filled, purifying all stains. The excess nectar overflows from my crown and transforms into Buddha Amitabha. Om Vajra Amrita Kundali Hana Hana Hum Pe Om Sabhava Shuddha Sarva Dharma Sobhava Shuddhoham. Out of emptiness from 8 Om syllables appear spacious, extensive, jeweled vessels inside of which the syllables Om transform into different offering substances, which are clear, unobstructed, and extensive as space. Oma Agam Ahum, Oma Padyam Ahum, Om Pupe Ahum, Om Dupe Ahum, Om Aloke Ahum, Om Gende Ahum, Om Nuide Ahum, Om Shabda. So that's the blessing, now actually making the offerings. Om Aryatare Saparivare Agam Padyam Pupe Dupe Aloke Gende Nuide Shabda Pradijam. I prostrate to Mother Tara, the liberator of beings from existence, the one who liberates from the 8 worldly fears with Tutare, freeing from all illnesses with Ture. All the wisdom and activities of compassion of the extensive Buddhas, appearing in the form of the extremely beautiful goddess, bestowing longevity and supreme attainments to a great number of beings. I prostrate to the one who is extremely white and holds an utpala in her hand. At the heart center of myself, visualized as Arya White Tara, is an 8-spoked wheel with a hub and 3 rims. At the center, on a moon disk, is my own mind as a white tam, encircled by the mantra for increase. Om tare tutare ture mama ayapune jnana pushtim kuru ye soha. On the 8 spokes are the 8 syllables tare tutare ture swa. On the inner rim, the vowels are placed counterclockwise. Om, a, I, u, ri, ri, li, li, e, o, a, ka, a, swaha. On the middle rim, the consonants are arranged clockwise. Om, ka, ka, nga, cha, 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 nya, ta, ta, tana, pa, 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 ma, ya, ra, la, la, sha, 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 sa. Sorry, Geshe is speeding me up there. And on the outer rim is the mantra of the essence of dependent arising, arranged counterclockwise. Om ye Dharma hetu prabhava hetun teshan tatagato yavadat teshan chayo niroda evam vadi mahashramana ye soha. So Geshe said that one of the things that we provided was a link to the wheel of all of these different mantras. So I don't know if Dave can put that link in the chat there for everybody, but you can have the visualization of these 3 mantras because they're visualized within a wheel. So then there's a tam in the middle of this wheel, and then around that is the Tara mantra, and then around that the white Tara mantra, which goes Om tare tu tare ture mama ayapune jana pushtum kuriso. Sorry, tana de ngaya potong. So there's a tam in the middle, and then in that first circle is Om ayo mama pushtim is the Om ayur mama pushtim. And then you'll see that around that center of the wheel, then in the next layer, you have 8 spokes jutting out. You have 8 spokes jutting out. And that's tare tu tare ture so. We imagine those 8 syllables of the mantra. So you don't have the there. And then you'll see that there are 3 wheels that kind of emanate beyond that. So these are like the 3 outer layers of the wheel. Okay, mijam noma la shingimedu. Okay, right. So then you have the inner rim. You have the inner rim of the wheel. Gonda, yore, sorry. Yeah. Om a I u yeah. So then in this inner rim, which is kind of like the first of those 3 main layers beyond the spokes, you have the vowels, and the vowels are going in a counterclockwise direction. The vowels are going in a counterclockwise direction. And in the middle rim, you have the consonants of the alphabet going in a clockwise direction.
This one, much Tama Shamatella, Tama Tamatella,
Loso. And then in the outer rim, also arranged clockwise, is the mantra of the essence of dependent arising, the Om Ye Dharma mantra.
This one, then
And so Geshe said that we actually don't have it mentioned in our sadhana, but from Garchen Rinpoche's website, who was kind enough to provide this illustration, there's actually a fence of dorjes as the very, very final layer of this wheel, but that's not mentioned in our sadhana.
This one,
So in our tradition, we visualize the protection circle a little bit differently. We visualize them like a boop. So those boop are the two Tibetan symbols that are like a round hat with a part jutting out. So it's like two sides of a shell in which the mantra is enclosed. So that's how we visualize. And so within these two sides of like those big Tibetan symbols, the ones that are played like this, you imagine that they're like two sides of a shell. And within this, so it's like those symbols that you play like this, if people have seen them before. And so then within this is actually the mantra wheel. And we imagine that all sentient beings are within this enclosure and completely protected from all hindrances and obscurations. So we'll continue now. Yeah. The seed syllable and all the letters of the mantras are in, so we're on page 11. The seed syllable and all the letters of the mantra are in the nature of light. Dewdrops of nectar stream forth from the letters. At my crown is the Lord of the family, Lord Amatayus, red in color, with one face and two arms, holding a golden vase filled with the nectar of immortality in the gesture of meditative equipoise. Clad in silk and jeweled ornaments, he sits in the Vajra position. He is adorned at the heart with the red syllable Hri, from which hook-like red rays of light emanate in the 10 directions, collecting all of my life energies that have been robbed, stolen, or caused to be taken away or scattered by human and non-human beings, as well as the essence of the 5 great elements and the life energy and merits of all living beings, the brilliance and dignity of the 3 worlds, and so forth. All the wealth and goodness of existence and the blessings of the body, speech, and mind of the Guru, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are collected back into the form of nectar and rays of light in different colors and absorb into the vase in Amatayus's hands. By this absorption, the white nectar overflows and enters into my crown opening, absorbing into the wheel, the mantra, and the seed syllable at my heart. From that, rays of nectar flow down, filling my entire body. My outer body is washed. The accumulation of unwholesome imprints and obscurations, illnesses, disturbances, and obstacles of life are cleansed and purified, thus restoring my life energies, merits, and broken vows and commitments, and I attain the city of immortality. Yeah. So now we will recite the longer mantra of White Tara a few times together. So next we come to the mantra for increase. So Om Tare, the syllable Tare means freed from all the fears of samsara. Tutare means freedom specifically from the 8 great types of fear. Ture means complete freedom from all physical and mental hindrances. Maya Ayupune Jnana. Sedang. And then Maya Ayupune Jnana means an increase of our merits, longevity, and wisdom. So we'll recite this mantra together a few times, and then we'll recite silently. Om tare tu ture mama aya pune jana pushtum kuru ye swaha. Om tare tu ture mama aya pune jana pushtum kuru ye swaha. Om tare tu ture mama aya pune jana pushtum kuru ye swaha. Om tare tu ture mama aya pune jana pushtum kuru ye swaha. Yeah. So as you recite, you can imagine that the mantra garland is at your heart, and that from this countless light rays emanate, completely filling and purifying the body. Om tare tu ture mama ayapune jana puchun guru ye soha. Om tare tu ture soha. So the normal Tara mantra, Om tare tu ture soha, Om tare tu ture soha, Om tare tu ture soha, Om tare tu ture soha. Om tare tu ture soha, 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 Om tare tu ture soha. So then also so there is this visualization of like these kind of different layers of color. Geshe will give commentary on these, but we won't do them today because we don't have time. So we're just going to jump ahead to page 14. We're going to jump ahead to page 14 and recite the Vajrasattva mantra to purify mistakes. Om Pema Salva Samaya Manupalaya Pema Sadhu Tenopatita Jidume Bhava Sutukaya Mahasamaya Sato so then whatever mistakes I have made because of not knowing or lacking ability or not finding the proper materials, please be patient with all of these. Then the final offering verse. Om Aryatare Sapariware Agam Padyem Hupe Dupe Aloke Gende Nude Shabda Pratisha Hunso to Badi. All the wisdom and activities of compassion of the extensive Buddhas appearing in the form of the extremely beautiful goddess, bestowing longevity and supreme attainments to a great number of beings, I praise the one who is extremely white and holds an utpala in her hand. And then we go ahead to page 18, where we do the final disillusion. Tama Tama di Jipshegu, where we dissolve the visualization and then we'll do the dedication. From the syllable at my heart, rays of light emanate. All the container and contain dissolve into light and absorb into the brownish circle. The 6 circles and protective wheel dissolve in stages from outer to inner. The protective wheel also dissolves into me. I absorb into the wheel into the mantra rings, the rings into the tam, which dissolves stages into emptiness. Out of emptiness I arise as the Lady Tara, marked at the crown with an Om, at the throat with an Ah, and at the heart with a Hum. Through the merit collected by this practice, may I attain the state of Venerable Tara and lead all living beings without exception to her state of enlightenment. When the signs of untimely death appear, by instantly seeing the form of the wish-fulfilling wheel, the power of the Lord of Death is eliminated. May I swiftly attain the state of a knowledge holder of immortality. Through the roots of merit accumulated by this meditation, recitation, praises, and offerings to the Venerable Tara, may all obstacles, interferences, evils, and disturbances be pacified, and may I enjoy the glory of immortality. By merely seeing your body, hearing your speech, and remembering you, all signs of untimely death are destroyed. In all my lifetimes, may I be guided by the Venerable Tara, and may I be able to enjoy the holy Dharma. May I swiftly attain the activities of pacification, increase power and destruction, the 8 cities, and so forth. May I quickly attain all the common and supreme attainments, and may all my hope and wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Whoever holds the sweet dew of nectar of immortality, the sadhana of the white upala flower, in the palms of their hands respectfully, Aryatara will rejoice in that fortunate being. So we'll do our standard dedications to close the session. Jangjob Semjo Grimboje Maje Banam Jejurje Jewan Yamba Meba Yang Gone Gondu Bewa Sho Tongni Dawa Rimboje Maje Banam Jejurje Jeban Yamba Meba Yang Gone Gondu Bewa Sho Jambe Bao Jida Kemba Da Kundu Zambo Deyon De Jente Deda Kunge Jesu Dalo Chir Gewa Dida Tamche Rabdu Mo Dusun Shepe Gewa Tamche Ge Ngowa Gangla Chodu Ngapa Dagi Gewe Tsawa Dikun Kyong Zambo Choji Radu Ngowa Gangri Rawe Korwe Jinkangge Pendan Dewa Malu Jongwe Chenre Ziwan Tenzin Jatso Yu Shabe Side Badu Tengyochi. So we will pause the session there. So at least we went through some preliminary stages of how the practice goes. So Geshe said, please enjoy your break. And don't forget that at 1 o'clock, Dekyi-Lee will be leading a session of this practice. And then Geshe and I will see you again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Take care, everybody.
This one.